Hi, I'm Matt Renfro. This is Mod 12, and today we are going to be talking about tort law. So let's talk about tort liability. A tort is a civil wrong committed against one person by another and is typically remedied in the form of awarding damages. So, in other words, monetary compensation for the torts that have been committed against one person. So when someone is held liable for the tort that they've committed, they're found liable in one of two ways. And the first way is what they call intentional tort. In intentional tort does exist in school situations. Unfortunately, doesn't seem like it's the most common. We'll talk about the most common here in a second. But an intentional tort is having the intention, knowing that you're going to do something that is wrong and knowing that it is going to result in harm to another. Is an intentional tort. Battery is the most common form of intentional tort. You know you're going to strike someone, use physical force. You are aware that that physical force is most likely going to cause harm to the person. That is intentional. It is an intentional tort. The unintentional torts are most commonly found in the form of what they call negligence. And this is what's most commonly found in lawsuits against school districts. Negligence meaning not exercising care in a situation which could be reasonably regarded as hazardous or dangerous. So this is what we see the most commonly in tort allegations against schools. The five cases that we're going to look at here all deal with negligence, which is an unintentional tort. Well, the first school tort case we're going to look at involves the Anchorage School District. There was no last name to associate this. There was no Smith versus Anchorage School District. This family's name remained anonymous due to the age of the student. But in this scenario, a 6-year-old kindergarten student, he was saying goodbye to his kindergartner teacher. His mom was waiting across the parking lot, if you will. It didn't say exactly where, it just said on the school grounds, waiting for her son. So the son was running over to his mom to be picked up from school, trips and falls. And unfortunately, the school, I'm going to assume groundskeepers, had just removed some pine shrubs on the property and had left stumps and saplings in the ground where they were. They were not fully removed. They were protruding from the ground. And from what the article said, they basically acted as bayonets. And when this young man fell, one of these stumps impaled his eye socket, spared his eye. He did not lose his eye, but it basically bypassed his eye and jabbed the frontal lobe of his brain. This caused brain damage in the form where this young man developed hyperphagia, which is a new to me. I learned about this. This is the inability to control one's appetite. This young man was found to be breaking out of his own home at 5 a.m. in negative degree temperatures to go to the convenience store to get food. It's a strong urge to eat and an inability to control your appetite. So he developed that as well as narcolepsy. So he's falling asleep at all times, cannot get enough sleep. So very detrimental problems here happening to this young man's brain as a result of the district's negligence, which is what the courts did determine, that the district was negligent. They did not exercise the proper enough care to remove these things. There was foreseeable danger here, and that's what happened. Ultimately, this ended up being like a $4.5 million settlement. Not even a settlement. This was decided in the court. And this is worth noting because when I was looking at this article, I learned why school districts settle sometimes and go to trial other times. I was unaware of why any company did this, to be honest with you. And after reading this, I understand that when a school settles, they're not taking it to trial because they're trying to avoid having to pay a much larger settlement or much larger penalty that would be set by the courts or by the jury. So instead of paying $10 million that the courts may offer a victim, maybe they say, okay, well, we'll just settle out of court. We'll give you $5 because they're hoping to save the $5 million. In essence, it seems like it's an admission of guilt, really. And this is worth noting because in response to how do I think the reactive measures would have been in my school, I feel like they probably would have settled on this one. The Anchorage School District did not settle. They took this to the court, and the $4.5 million that was awarded is the largest civil awardment to a victim in their history. So I feel like if they would have settled instead of taking that to trial, they probably could have saved their school district quite a bit of money. And I feel like that's what my school district most likely would have done. As far as proactive measures, there needs to be follow-up on the groundskeeping here on the school of when things are removed, such as these shrubs, that all debris is completely removed. So that would have been a proactive measure to prevent this travesty from happening. So this is the first of the 5 schools we're looking at. The next school is Munn versus Hotchkiss School. So in this tort, a 15-year-old, she was bitten while on a hiking trip. It was organized by her school. They were in a mountain in China, and she was bit by a tick. And unfortunately, this tick transmitted encephalitis, and this is very, very rare. However, it caused serious neurological damage to the young lady, and it left her unable to speak for the rest of her life. And so through the lawsuit, the school was found to be negligent due to a breach of duty, which was talked about in several of our texts. And the actual court ruled that the school owes a duty of care to a minor student who is on a school trip to exercise reasonable care to protect her against physical injuries that might arise in the course of such a trip. So what happened here was the school failed to provide any documentation or warning that the students would be hiking in an area that might have dangers such as ticks and what these ticks might carry with them. And so since they failed to do that, they breached a duty. They were found negligent, and this settlement hasn't been quite settled yet. But in any case, the school was found negligent. As far as reactive measures in my school, this case went to court. I feel like my school would have probably erred on the side of safety and just tried to settle on this. There was clearly a breach of duty. There really shouldn't have been any question about that. So why this school district chose to take it to the courts instead of versus settling, I'm not sure, but I feel like that's what a reactive measure would have been in my school. And as far as proactive measures, as I mentioned, there was no formal written warning about what these students would be doing as far as going on a hiking trip. This was not mentioned in this school's itinerary, so that should have been mentioned. And then it also should have been mentioned that they should have been able to have bug spray or some type of DEETs to prevent ticks from biting. Sorry about my dog crying there. He is not feeling well, and I'm trying to take care of him. All right, so next up is Rollins versus Concordia Parish School Board. And in this case, a 9-year-old 4th grade student was out with her friends in recess. There was one teacher patrolling the grounds. These girls were getting too fast on the merry-go-round. The teacher informed them to slow down and get off of the merry-go-round because they were going too fast. And in that time, the teacher heard some other boys screaming about a basketball. And so the teacher turned and went to try and see what was going on there. And in the 30 seconds, she said that she had been turned around. A young lady, Lisa Rollins, had fallen off of the merry-go-round and fractured her leg. And so in this case, what happened here, yes, the district was found negligent. However, and this was covered in some of our text, there was what they call contributory negligence. In other words, there's negligence on both parties. So the school district was found negligent, but Lisa Rollins was also found negligent. And so when that happens, they decide what percentage of negligence you are. In this case, they decided that Lisa Rollins was 50% negligent, and the school district was 50% negligent. And so what happened there was they decided that the damages were $10,000. Since Lisa Rollins was 50% negligent, they cut that down to a $5,000 damage settlement there. And so that is what happened in this one. As far as reactive measures in my school, I mean, I'm in a high school, I know, but it's all the same. It's still education, but we don't have recess or anything like that. We do have PE class and whatnot. But as far as reactive measures here, again, I feel like my school